I am Stevie.
Well, Zach Cregger has done it again. After the success of Barbarian, a film that pulled the rug out from under horror audiences everywhere, he's back with Weapons. On the surface, it's about a community reeling from an impossible tragedy. 17 children vanish without a trace. But dig deeper, you realise the real horror isn't just about the missing kids. It's about power, grief, and what it means to be turned into a weapon. Today, I'm walking you through Weapons, scene by scene, every chapter, every reveal, and of course, that absolutely bonkers ending. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about Cregger himself. He's proven to be a real player in the horror space. Much like Jordan Peele, he comes from a comedic background, and we see elements of that comedy, often dark, woven into his films. It was more obvious in Barbarian, but it's definitely still present here in Weapons. And the way he uses it, brilliant. That humour takes the sting out of an ever-building tension, and then suddenly, when the horror hits, it feels more visceral than ever before. Now, Cregger has spoken about his style and inspiration, and it seems like Weapons was a film born out of grief. After the tragic death of his close friend and comedy partner Trevor Moore, he channeled those feelings into this story. And that matters, because often the best horror comes from real-world pain. Think about James O'Barr's The Crow, the 4-part comic series that was broken into pain, fear, irony and despair. All emotions O'Barr was carrying after losing his fiancée to a drunk driver. Weapons feels like it's cut from the same cloth, a story built from loss and darkness. We start with a little girl's voiceover, almost like a fairy tale. Once upon a time, but here's the thing, she isn't scared, she isn't panicked, she's calm. Like this is just another story. And that calmness, that's what makes it unnerving. Cut to Justine Gandy's classroom. It's empty, every desk abandoned, except for one, Alex Lilly. He's the only child left, because the rest of the kids, all 17 of them, got up the night before at exactly 2:17 a.m. and just walked out of their homes. The sequence is haunting. We see house cameras, we hear alarms, but no one stops them. And all this is overlaid with George Harrison's Beware the Darkness. On its own, a beautiful song, but paired with these kids shuffling into the night, arms stretched out like they're being pulled by something unseen, it becomes deeply disturbing. Alex and Justine are interviewed by the police. Neither of them can explain what happened. From here, the movie splinters into chapters, each one told from a different perspective. And this first one, it belongs to Justine. We cut to a school meeting. The parents are furious. They want answers. And who do they blame? Justine. She's the kids' teacher. So the anger, the grief, the resentment, it all lands on her. Marcus, the head teacher, does his best to defend her. But it's clear, this is an uphill battle. Without answers, Justine is the perfect target, and after a brutal day, she heads to the local convenience store to buy not just one, but 2 bottles of vodka. And honestly, it's fair enough. But while she's there, she gets a strange phone call. A voice tells her, "Watch your back." And on her way out, she has a quick run-in with a long-haired local begging for change. We'll come back to him later. Back at home, she cracks open the vodka, and before she can even drink, the doorbell rings, and then the banging starts. Her response? Very human and very funny. Pure Cregger dark comedy to break the tension. And when she finally steps outside, she finds a car has been painted with the word witch. Foreshadowing much? The next day, Marcus puts her on leave. The parents want her gone, and until things cool down, she's out. After being suspended, Justine sits in her car and breaks down. But here's the thing. At this point in the movie, we as the audience don't know if we can fully trust her either. And that doubt lingers. Later, she heads to a bar where we meet Paul, a local cop with a glorious moustache. And also, clearly, an old flame. She notices he's got an injury on his hand. Something that will become very important later. They flirt. He tells her things with his partner Donna aren't great. They end up back together for the night. The next morning is awkward. Justine isn't impressed with Paul's attitude towards the missing kids, so she decides to do her own detective work. She follows Alex Lilly home, and when no one answers the front door, She sneaks around the back, and through a gap in the newspaper-covered windows, she sees something horrifying. Alex's parents sitting motionless in the dark. She tells Marcus about it, and he warns her, leave it alone. But things keep spiralling. At the store again, Justine is jumped by Donna, who figured out she spent the night with Paul. Donna throws her to the ground, and we realise Paul hasn't exactly been honest. That night, Justine has a nightmare. She's back in her classroom, and all the kids are sitting at their desks, heads down, and then Alex looks up, his face painted, almost like a clown. She wakes in horror, only to roll over and see a red-haired woman crawling on her ceiling. Terrifying. The next day, she tries to talk to Alex again, but he runs away, telling her to stop following him. And so later, she stakes out his house, vodka in hand, of course, and eventually she passes out in the car. And that's when it happens. Alex's mother bursts out of the house, scissors in hand. She climbs into Justine's car and cuts off a lock of her hair while she sleeps. The music, the bizarre running motion, and the sheer wrongness of the moment, it's unsettling to the core. And that brings Justine's chapter to an end, because now the focus shifts and we cut to Archer, the angry dad from the school meeting, and we realise something crucial. This story is going to be drip-fed, character by character, each one showing us another piece of the puzzle, a classic Cregger style. Next up, we shift focus to Archer. He's one of the angry parents from the school meeting, and now we get his perspective. Archer is grieving. We see him sleeping in Matthew, his missing son's bed, rewatching the Ring doorbell footage of Matthew leaving the house, frame by frame. He's falling apart at work, making mistake after mistake, and his colleagues are beginning to notice, but he won't let go. At the police station, he pushes for answers, but his obsession keeps circling back to Justine. He even follows her. From his perspective, we see the night Justine's car was painted with the word witch. The wrong colour paint he had ordered earlier is a dead giveaway. He was the one stalking her. Then we get Archer's nightmare sequence. He follows Matthew into a house, and floating above it in the sky, the silhouette of an AK-47 with 217 etched across it. Inside, he finds Matthew in bed, trance-like. Heartbreakingly, he admits he never told his son how much he loved him. But then, Matthew morphs into a horrifying clown-like woman. The scare hits hard, and Archer wakes up in Matthew's bed, blurting out, in perfect Cregger style, WTF. Again, tension, dread, then sharp comedy. Genius. The next morning, Archer believes he's cracked the case. He thinks the kids were all heading to a single central location. He studies maps, doorbell footage, and builds a radius. While he's working, he runs into Justine at a petrol station. They argue about her involvement, but then both notice something terrifying. Marcus, the head teacher, is stumbling towards them, but not the Marcus they know. His hair wild, his face bloodied, his eyes crazed. He attacks Justine. She fights him off with Archer's help. The chapter ends with Marcus and Archer wrestling on the ground. Marcus, clearly possessed, and from there, the focus shifts again. Now it's Paul's chapter. Paul, the cop. We already know a few things about him, but now we see his side. First, he's still with Donna. That fling with Justine, yeah, not as clean cut as he made it sound. On patrol, Paul spots a long-haired guy trying to break into a warehouse. This is James, the same guy Justine ran into outside the store. Paul chases him down, and after he catches him, he begins to search him, and accidentally sticks his finger with one of James's dirty syringes. Panicking, he knocks James out with a brutal punch. He then notices his dash cam is on, so he makes a kind of shady deal to let James go if James remains quiet. This explains his hand injury Justine had noticed earlier in the bar. Later, Paul meets Justine at the bar, and the cycle continues. Back home, Donna realises where he's been, and things blow up. On duty again, Paul sees James and loses it. He chases him, deliberately shutting down his dashcam this time, and this is where Paul's perspective ends, because next we see the world through James's point of view. James is introduced in a tent, trying to get high but running out of drugs. Desperate, he wanders into town looking for cash, trying car doors and even family members. Eventually, he attempts to pawn some stolen stuff, but has no luck. That's when he breaks into Alex Lily's house. Inside, he finds what Justine saw earlier. Alex's parents sitting motionless in the dark. He hears banging upstairs, terrifying, so instead of going up, he makes the genius decision to head into the basement. And there it is, the reveal, the missing children, all of them. James panics, flees, but Alex's parents suddenly come alive and chase him out. Later, high again, James calls the police to claim the £50,000 reward for finding the kids. They tell him to come into the police station, but instead, Paul intercepts him. At James's tent, a red-haired clown-like woman, the same that Justine had seen earlier, appears in the woods, waving. James hides in terror. When Paul unzips his tent, James lashes out, stabbing him in the face with multiple syringes. In the desperation, James blurts out that he knows where the missing kids are. So Paul drags him into the police car and James points him back to the Lily's house. Paul goes inside. Hours later, he comes out, but he's changed. That crazed, demonic look Marcus had. He drags James inside the house and we cut again, this time to Marcus's chapter. Marcus, the head teacher. We pick up with him receiving a call from Justine, telling him what she saw in Alex's house. He agrees to check on Alex's parents. Then we see him at the school, meeting with Alex's aunt, Gladys. She's sweet, almost too sweet. The kind of demeanour that immediately feels wrong. She explains she's helping out because Alex's parents are ill with consumption, an old-fashioned word for tuberculosis. But she's not what she seems. At Marcus's home later, she shows up again. His partner lets her in, and things begin to spiral. Gladys uses a stick with marked ribbons tied around it. She pricks her own skin and cuts Marcus's partner's hair and ties it to the stick. Then she rings a bell. Marcus freezes, paralysed. In a horrifying sequence, he attacks and kills his partner, vomiting black goo into his face, then headbutting him to death. It's graphic and brutal. Gladys then ties more hair around the stick. This time it's Justine's. She breaks it and Marcus snaps into a crazed run, charging into the streets, and this leads directly back to the petrol station attack where he tries to kill Justine and Archer. He is eventually hit and killed by a car, but the damage is done. And now we arrive at the chapter that ties it all together, Alex's chapter. We flash back before the disappearances. Justine is teaching the kids about parasites, specifically tapeworms. The theme couldn't be clearer. Alex is bullied by Matthew, Archer's son. At home, his dad seems kind, but we learn Aunt Gladys has come to stay. Alex overhears his parents whispering. They haven't seen her in 15 years, and something's off. He spies on her in her room, sees that same twisted plant tied to her rituals, and when she notices him, it's bone-chilling. Soon his parents slip into a trance-like state, sitting at the dinner table, barely moving. Gladys makes Alex feed them. Gladys makes him promise not to tell anyone she's living there. She then demonstrates her power, forcing his parents to stab themselves with forks without even flinching, threatening to make them eat each other. Alex is terrified. Later, she gives him a task. Bring something from each student in his class. If he does so, she promises she will leave and return home. So he steals their name tags, slides them under Gladys's bedroom door, and at 2:17 a.m, she works her spell. The children leave their homes, and they all come to Alex's house. That's how it all began. From there, things escalate. The police come to search the house. Gladys acts innocent, sweet. The kids are hidden away. Alex continues feeding them, as well as his parents. When Paul and James show up, they're taken too. And then the final showdown begins. Archer and Justine arrive. Gladys unleashes her power. Paul and James attack. Alex's parents turn violent. In the chaos, Justine is forced to shoot Paul, then James, and Alex hides in Gladys's room. He tries to recreate the spell using one of Gladys's hairs. And it works. The children, under his control now, swarm Gladys. They chase her and then eventually tear her apart. And as soon as she dies, the spells lift. Archer is freed and so is Justine. Archer finds Matthew again and hugs him. Alex is being comforted by his parents. And then we hear the same little girl's voiceover. Everything seems back to normal. But is it really? So that's my breakdown of Weapons. But let me give you my own thoughts on this film. And I'll be completely honest, I absolutely loved it. It's genuinely upsetting and scary. But what makes it work so well is the way those little moments of comedy are sprinkled in. They don't feel forced, they feel earned. Take that scene where Archer sees Gladys in his bed. It's terrifying. And then suddenly we get his completely human reaction of what the fuck. It breaks the tension in the most natural way possible before the horror slams back in. And that feels like Cregger at his best. And really, this whole movie is a slow burn. It builds tension step by step, drip feeding answers to us. In this clever, non-linear structure, each chapter focuses on a different character, and you slowly piece together the bigger picture yourself. It's a bold choice for a mystery horror film, because Cregger is trusting us, the audience, to connect all the dots. And believe me, the clues are there. The parasite metaphors are everywhere, from the board in Justine's classroom, to the subject she's teaching, to Marcus and his partner watching TV. The film keeps dropping these hints about control, about hosts and parasites, until the big reveal clicks into place. What I also love about this film is how it plays with misdirection. Early on, Justine's car is vandalised with the word witch. And naturally, as the viewer, we start to wonder, is she? But the truth is, she was never the witch at all. It's Cregger playing with our expectations the same way he did in Barbarian. And finally, we have to talk about what's next. It's already been announced that we'll likely be getting a prequel which focuses on Gladys's origins. Now, personally, I'm a bit torn on this. On one hand, it could be fascinating to see where she came from, what the ritual is, and how long she's been doing it. On the other hand, part of what makes her so terrifying is the mystery. She just is. Do we really need her full backstory spelt out? Or is it just scarier if we don't know? Personally, I could go either way, but if Zach Cregger's telling it, I'm absolutely going to watch it. So yeah, for me, Weapons is one of the best horror films of this year so far. It's disturbing, funny, and brilliantly structured, and an absolute masterclass in how to drip feed dread. Once again, thank you for tuning in to I Am Stevie.
We did it, people.